The clouds hung heavy over the province of Virum, their bellies swollen with storm. Thunder rolled like the chariots of Jupiter himself, and the wind carried the bitter scent of burning thatch and broken flesh. At the edge of the city, where the river Virum carved its eternal scar across the land, stood the Ponte Veritas, the Bridge of Truth, an old name from older times, when men still believed in honor. Lucius Varro, son of Decimus, stood alone upon that bridge. His larica segmentata bore the marks of 2 decades of war, the scars of Britannia, the dents of Germania, the cuts from the sands of Parthia. His scarlet sagum was soaked, its folds clinging to his back. The crest of his helmet, once bright red, hung, faded, and frayed. His shield leaned against the marble balustrade. Its gladius, worn smooth by years of use, hung heavy at his side. Beyond the bridge, the legions of the East advanced. An army of mercenaries and deserters, hired blades with no standard but coin. They came with fire, with steel, and with the hunger of men who had long forgotten mercy. Behind him, the gates of Virum groaned shut. The city's elders, the Senate, had fled in the night, taking with them the treasury, the relics, and their hollow oaths. Their orders were clear: burn the bridge, abandon the weak, save the gold. Lucius refused, not for the Senate, not for the crumbling stones of Virum, but for something older, something deeper, his own soul. A man may lose his home, his titles, even his life, but if he loses his honor, he becomes nothing. Footsteps echoed on wet stone. Lucius, a voice called, sharp as flint, "You are mad." It was Cassia, barefoot, her tunic stained with ash and mud, her dark hair tangled from flight, daughter of no patrician line, born of the plebs, but with eyes that burned like the forge of Vulcan himself. "You stand here alone?" she spat. "For what?" "The Senate has abandoned you. The city is lost. The gods themselves have turned their faces. Flee while the road to the west still stands." Lucius did not move, his gaze fixed upon the black banners cresting the eastern hills. "I will not flee," he said, his voice steady as a temple pillar. Cassia's hands trembled, not from fear, but from fury. "Then you are a fool. There is no glory in dying for men who would not spit to quench your thirst." Lucius turned. His gaze was not cruel, not condescending, only immovable. "Do not stand for them," he said. "I stand for the man I have sworn to be." A slow clapping broke the air, well spoken, noble, so tragic. From the shadow of a toppled column stepped Gaius Septimus. Robes of Tyrian purple clung to his corpulent frame. His fingers glistened with rings of emerald and gold. His face, slick with rain and sweat, bore the smile of a serpent fattened on the meat of dead empires. "Lucius," Gaius crooned, "the Republic is dust. The Senate are cowards. The city belongs to vultures. Come with me. There is still a ship on the western shore, cold beyond counting. A villa in Hispania. Slaves, comfort, freedom." Lucius remained silent. Gaius pressed, his voice oiled with persuasion. "You owe nothing, not to this city, not to these people. Let the bridge fall. Let the dogs of war have their feast. Save yourself. Come." Silence. The rain became a curtain. Distant horns echoed. The enemy was drawing near. Lucius placed his hand upon the hilt of his sword. Not his threat, but his anchor. "I am not here," he said, "because I owe. I am here because this," he struck his chest, "this is still mine. The world may burn. The legions may fall. My word, my honor, remains." Cassia stared, half in disbelief, half in awe. "Honor," she muttered. "A poor companion to die with." Lucius looked to her, calm, steady. "Better to die with honor," he said, "than to live as a shadow without it." A great horn sounded from the hills. The earth trembled. The enemy was coming. Lucius drew his gladius, fastened his shield to his forearm, and beneath his breath, like a prayer to the gods who still listened, he whispered, "Fate commands the flesh, but the mind is forever free." The horns of the eastern horde screamed through the hills. The ground trembled beneath the march of armored feet. Standards bearing the black serpent of the mercenary king swayed in the wind, their silk soaked with rain and blood. Hundreds of men, spears, shields, swords drawn, eyes hungry for conquest, for plunder, for the breaking of one last gate before the city was theirs. Lucius tightened the grip on his shield. His fingers, calloused from 20 years of war, found their familiar places. His gladius, worn and pitted, felt like an extension of his own will. There was no fear, only presence, only the breath between this moment and the next. Cassia stood at the foot of the bridge, staring at him as if caught between admiration and horror. "You are mad," she whispered. "No man can hold against that." Lucius did not answer. He simply lowered his helmet. The iron met his brow with the sound of finality. A voice rose from the enemy line. "Lay down your arms, Roman," the herald bellowed. "The city is fallen. The Senate has fled. The gods have abandoned you. Surrender, and you may yet see another sunrise." Lucius raised his voice, calm, measured, clear as marble cut by a master's hand. "Come and take it." A silence followed. A silence filled with the tension of drawn bows and held breath. Then the wave broke. With a roar, the front line surged forward. Shields locked, spears lowered, metal boots thundered against the soaked stone. Lucius planted his feet. The first spear came. He knocked it aside with his shield. Tipped in. The gladius slid beneath the rim of the mercenary's helmet. Steel met flesh. A scream. Blood splashed against his arm. Another spear, another shield, another body fell. They pressed. 10 men, 15, 20. The bridge narrowed their advance. No more than 3 could face him at once. He became a wall, a storm wrapped in flesh and iron. His shield was not defense, but hammer. His blade was not sword, but judgment. Gaius watched from the shore, lips curled in disgust. "Stubborn fool," he muttered. "Honor will not feed you. It will not save you." Cassia stood frozen, her hands clenched. Every instinct screamed to run, to abandon this madness, yet her feet would not move. The hours dragged like centuries. The rain turned, the stones slick with blood, bodies piled. The mercenaries faltered. They did not expect resistance. Not here, not from one man. Still, they pressed. Still, Lucius stood. A sword struck his shield. Another split the rim. A spear grazed his thigh. His breath grew ragged. His arms burned. His vision swam. But his stance never broke, because he knew a truth they did not. The body is meat. The body is clay. Flesh is the plaything of fate, but the mind, the will, the choice to hold, that belongs to no man, no army, no god. A mercenary broke ranks. Charged alone, screaming, Lucius sidestepped, drove the gladius up, into the gut, a wet gasp. The man folded. More came, more fell. His shoulder wrenched. Blood seeped from his ribs. His legs trembled, and still he stood. From the hillside, the commander of the mercenaries cursed. His hand waved. A signal. Archers. Dozens. The sky darkened as arrows flew. Lucius raised his shield. One embedded in the rim. Another scraped his greave. A third struck his shoulder, but failed to pierce fully. A fourth buried into his thigh. He staggered, but his shield remained high. Beneath the rain, beneath the blood, beneath the ruin of the world, he remained. The commander snarled, raised his sword. sent another wave. Cassia's breath caught. Her nails dug into her palms. "Run," she whispered. "Run, you mad old fool. No one will blame you." But Lucius did not run. Because duty was not a contract written by cowards. It was not a promise made to the Senate. It was not a debt to be paid with gold. It was the sacred covenant a man made with himself. I will be who I promised myself to be. Not when it is easy, not when it is safe, but when it is hardest. A roar rose from the enemy. Another charge. Lucius braced and whispered to the wind, "You may break my body. You will never touch my soul." The storm swallowed the rest. At the first light of dawn, the rain had ceased. Smoke drifted in long black tendrils above the ruins of Aram. The bridge, the Ponte Veritas, stood broken in its center, shattered by fire, blood, and the weight of men who had fought, bled, and fallen upon it. Scattered shields, broken swords, the twisted remains of those who had tried to cross. Among them, in the very heart of the bridge, lay Lucius Varro, his shield splintered, his gladius snapped in half, arrows in his thigh, in his shoulder, in his side. His breath was shallow, his vision blurred, but his eyes remained open. His hand still clenched around the broken hilt, his body failing, but his mind unbent. From the western road, a caravan of refugees watched in silence. Mothers held their children closer. Old men removed their worn caps in reverence. Among them stood Cassia, her hands trembling, her eyes burning with something unfamiliar. Not pity, not sorrow, something sharper, something deeper. A boy near her whispered, "Why does he not flee?" Cassia did not answer. Instead, she stepped forward, past the frightened, past the broken. Across the last stones of the bridge, Lucius turned his head. His lips cracked, blood on his teeth, but when he spoke, his voice was steady as marble. "Did they pass?" he asked. Cassia nodded, her throat clenched. "They did." A shallow breath, a faint nod. Then it was enough. Cassia dropped to her knees beside him. "Why?" she whispered. "I stand. Why stay when everyone else fled?" Lucius turned his gaze toward the rising sun. His face, blood-stained, battered, broken, and yet peaceful. "Because death comes to every man," he said. "But not every man meets it as himself." Tears pressed against Cassia's lashes. "But they will not remember you." Lucius smiled, faint and calm. "Then let the gods remember, or no one. It does not change what is." His breath rattled, the weight of the world pressing upon his ribs. His fingers loosened. The broken sword fell. But before the last light left his eyes, he whispered to her, to the wind, to the universe itself. "The flesh is clay. The bones are dust. But character is the only fortress that never falls." And then silence. No horns, no thunder, no morning songs, only the river, only the wind. Cassia sat there, unmoving as the sun climbed higher. Around her, the refugees stood in stunned quiet. And somewhere, deep within her, something shifted. The mocking laughter, the restless anger, the bitterness toward the world. All of it melted, replaced by something heavier, something sharper, something unbreakable. She rose, lifted the broken gladius, held it to her chest, and turned to face the people. "You," she said, "remember this, remember him. Not because the world will care, not because his name will echo in marble halls, but because this is how a man stands when all else falls." And so they remembered, not with statues, not with coins, but in the way they chose to walk, in the way they bore hardship, in the way they endured, in silence, in dignity, in unbreakable resolve. The bridge fell, the city crumbled. The empire would rise and fall 100 times over. But honor, that survived.